Hello everyone, good afternoon, welcome to the Emilia-Romagna region of Italy and to Imola. Here we are then for the World Final weekend. And boy, I say weekend, which is something of a misnomer because it's midweek. We are Wednesday, and already the action from the Finale Mondiale is going to get underway because we have qualifying to come. The cars will be taken to the track in just a moment. Now, this is what the region looks like when the sun shines. I regret to tell you it's not doing that at the moment, nor is it likely to over the next coming days or so. I'm sorry to say it's a bit gloomy and dark, but that is certainly not the case with the action that we will see. So 4.909 kilometers, then 21 turns, 12 left, and 9 of them right-handers. It's an anti-clockwise configuration, if you will, of this circuit, which is particularly demanding in terms of drivers getting the best out of it. Here come the weather conditions then, which are pretty track temperature 20 degrees, air temperature 19 degrees. There's 12 kilometers per hour of wind if you don't count what's coming through the microphone on air at the moment, and that's the way it looks. And those are pretty much the conditions we can expect for the next few days, I'm sorry to say. So drivers, get used to it. I think there will be some wet weather tyres in use. Alongside me is Nico Spalek. Sorry to say, of course, Finale Mondiale is always going to be at the end of the year because we have such a packed calendar, and what a stupendous calendar and year it has been. Therefore, the vagaries of the weather may always throw a curveball into our proceedings.
Yeah, absolutely. Good afternoon. Still from a wet Imola. There is the Giacomo Altoe car, and there is the driver. He is champion in Trofeo Pirelli Europe. Not that he needs any advice, but he's given the latest intel and info from the team. Talking a little bit of what this week will bring, except for precipitation. As you can see, wet practice is indicated, not that the drivers need any reminding. We will finish our calendars in North America and Europe over today with qualifying, and then tomorrow and on Friday with the races, and then Saturday and Sunday. It's a totally different kettle of fish, because then it's about one title for everybody.
Yes, the famed World Final races that will come, as Nico has suggested, with qualifying for that on the Saturday and then the races themselves on the Sunday. As we look at the car of David Kaya, who is inside the car then, you can see the raindrops on the Mertel Motorsport machine. And wet is definitely the way to go with regards to the rubber that the drivers will be choosing. You make mention of the fact that Giacomo Altoe, of course, is champion already in Trofeo Pirelli as we look at the Hanno Laskowski car for Emil Frey. The same is not true when it comes to our North American series across the course of this week, because the North American drivers' titles are up for grabs, and so therefore there's quite some pressure on those drivers that are at the sharp end of the championship. For some of our European competitors, of course, all the big work has been done and they've already sealed the deal, but that's not the case in everything as we look at the Armin Arifpour car right now, the Riller and Schnaut driver, whose best finish this season has been a P9. Will he be able to repeat that during the course of this week? It's very possible. As memory serves me, Armin doesn't dislike the damp conditions, and inevitably there are drivers that perform even better in the wet and the conditions seem to really suit their driving style, so it will play into the hands of some drivers, perhaps less into the hands of some other drivers. We've got qualifying getting underway now. Qualifying is slightly different for this series of events because with 30 minutes on the clock, the qualifying positions will be decided for both race 1 and race 2 to finish the championships. And if my interpretation is correct, and so often it isn't, fastest lap will give you your qualifying position for race 1. Second fastest lap will be your qualifying position for race 2.
Absolutely, yeah. Wow. 100%. And as we go on board with Klaus Brunson, just allows us to finish the thought on championships, because the Pirelli championship has been decided. Pirelli AM is still in contention, and Klaus Brunson is in the gun seat, if you will.
Yep.
He is leading the championship, had a very eventful season, ups lots of downs and then lots and lots and lots of ups recently. Hendrik Viol clawed back with a remarkable drive at the Nürburgring in, dare I say it, somewhat similar conditions. It was also wet. Overtaking quite a few Pirelli drivers in his quest to get on terms with as many of his competitors in class, and took a famous victory, which allows him still with a shout for the title here in Imola.
Should make mention of the fact that the broadcast production team that bring you these fantastic pictures and gloss the pictures with ridiculous words from the likes of me, joined by our colleague from German broadcasting as well. And that's not Nico. He considers himself to be an Englishman when it comes to broadcasting, but Oliver Fendel is here from Germany as well, who's one of our broadcast colleagues, and dark, nice fellow he is as well. Rotund, yes, but damn nice chap. I'm saying that because we rather maxed out at lunch today. Sorry, Otto Blank drives the 71. Get on the script, Dave. Otto Blank drives the number 71 car. Forgive us waxing lyrical, and forgive us being in such a chipper mood. The reason is we're here at the Finale Mondiale, and I mean, you can't get a much better event to be at, truthfully, as we see the number 89 car of Klaus Branson, who, as Nico has indicated, has had an up and a down season, but I kind of think it's been more ups than downs, because I think 6, if not 7 victories across the course of this season. What can he do? He's being chased by Hendrik Viol, there's no question about that. One of the two, dare I say it, could become champion at the end of the 2 races to round out the championship for Ferrari Challenge Europe over the course of the coming days. So we're watching the Klaus Branson car right now. We'll get some meaningful lap times up on the chart in due course. Another critical point in these conditions, Nico, that should be borne in mind as we run the clock on Klaus Branson is, with so many cars out on track, there's going to be something like 25 cars out there, or potentially 25 cars at any one time. Visibility with the spray coming off the back of the car, potentially in front of you, you know, really compromises what you can see going forward. Therefore, if you can find relatively clean tarmac, it's even more critical when it comes to this qualifying session than it is sometimes in the dry conditions.
Absolutely, and you already made mention to the regulations and how the grids are set. You don't need 1 good lap, you actually need 2 good laps, so it becomes even more critical that you get a clear track, not only once but twice at the very least in this qualifying session. And visibility is one thing, traffic is another, the weather plays a part.
We're riding on board with Klaus Branson now, who's having to navigate quite some traffic. As you can see, Sector 1 and Sector 2 are both coloured purple. You would kind of expect that anyway in the first part of qualifying. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's anything like the lap that he can deliver. But Klaus Branson, up against other cars out there, he's going to try and find that track time. That track space. That's what he needs, clear tarmac, so that he can put in the best laps possible. So Klaus Branson then driving for the Formula Racing team. And the Imola circuit is one that is quite twisty. It contains quite a lot of elements. The drivers don't really have a chance to relax at all because they're on it for the entire lap. And Branson has gone quickest with a 1:58.876. He's the only driver in the 58 so far. So it's Branson from St Nancy, Verhagen, then it's Herbert Geis, James Owen, I'm from Welsh Wales, you know. Kim Eriksson, P6, Otto Blank, then Danilo Del Favero and Axel Sardigan and David Akabadze. James said, do make mention of the fact that I'm from Wales when you're on the air, Dave, but you don't do that enough. So I felt that I had permission to do so, Nico.
Well done. There we are, and talking about the twisty part of the Imola circuit, I mean, even the home straight isn't a straight, as you saw. There is a significant kink in there, so, and that very frequently plays a part on the start, where if you're on the inside, you kind of already have an advantage, and some drivers have expressed their feeling that P3 actually is better than P2 because of that.
Fair point. We're watching Luca Ludwig, who's got a busy weekend this weekend. Luca Ludwig, the Mertel Motorsport driver then, who Sector 1 and Sector 2 quicker than anyone. We kind of expect that from Luca. He's something of a hot-shot young driver. There's no question about that. He's going to be the first of the Trofeo Pirelli drivers to give us a meaningful lap time as he heads to break the timing beam right now. It's a time of 1:53.222. Nico, that's some 5.6 seconds quicker as we see Marco Zanazzi out, and that has brought out the red flag. Now, at the risk of being the prophet of doom, I did wonder whether the conditions would be such and the pressure upon the drivers to deliver 2 awesome laps might prove to be perhaps instrumental in how the session would run, and already we have got an interruption. I think Luca just put the lap in before the Reds came out, so I think his 153.222 will stand as we ride, I think, on board with Hendrik Viol. Yes, indeed, it was the Hendrik Viol car. So red flags are out, car has got to be recovered. That means it's time for another Dave story. No, I'm joking. There is the Hendrik Viol car. Beautifully resplendent in that sort of purple and yellow livery that Hendrik has sported all season long, driving for the Scuderia Prague team, who, of course, next year get a home gig in the fantastic 2025 calendar as we return to, I know, what is one of your favorites, Nico, and that is the Brno circuit.
Absolutely, yeah. A great calendar overall with, for the first time ever, we get 8 rounds of the Ferrari Challenge Europe. And that includes a double stint in Spain with Barcelona and Valencia. We start off with a return to Monza, famously just rebuilt and reconfigured with a new first chicane and a new Sotto Passaggio, which another favorite of mine. And then obviously we go to Hockenheim, we go to Spa, and this weekend, we understand, we will also find out the location and date for the World Finals 2025,
yes,
which is the element of the calendar which has not been released, and we can tell you all about that as the cars file back into pit lane because of the intermission with red flag. It won't be very long until they recovered the car, but obviously when you try to set the fastest lap possible, yeah, having a sector with double waved yellows kind of doesn't help you at all, so it's better to red flag it and get underway.
You can see on screen that confirmation from race control that the session will restart at 14:44, which is in exactly 50 seconds from now, as we can see. Johnny Kane, then driver coach to Andrew Morrow. Having conversations with Andrew right now about how to get the best out of everything out there now. Andrew had just put a lap in. It's not meaningful, he will say, because he was down there in P14. Now, there is David Gosner. Driver of car number 50, David Gosner, is often on the entry list. It's not so often necessarily that we see him on track. So great to see you back, David. And as we're talking about the Gosners, we must wish well to Manu Gosner, who will be in the Cope Shell qualifying in just a moment, but has had a spell of poorliness, but he's back with a vengeance. And we look forward to seeing her out on track as we look at the Angelo Fontana car. Angelo taking a P3 in the last race at the Nürburgring in Germany. As we look at the number 23 car right now, and that, of course, is driven by David Akobadze. Right, we are ready to go again. We get the green flag and 24 minutes remaining in this qualifying session. So all of a sudden now, Nico, the pressure is ramped up a little bit because 6 minutes of the qualifying session is done. It's going to be very busy now because all the cars will file out of the pit lane at roughly the same time. If you're at the head of the queue, you've got an advantage for about a lap, which might mean that your warm-up is really, really good, but then you will encounter traffic that is leaving the pit lane. So there's no right, there's no wrong in terms of how you can try and design your entry from, or exit rather, from the pit lane and your entry onto the circuit. And all this man knows that he's got to do is try and get ahead of as many cars as possible, and that is Klaus Zabranson. He's currently fastest for the Pirelli Am driver, second fastest in the session overall, as the graphics to the left-hand side will indicate. Bear in mind, our Trofeo Pirelli cars have a red strip across the top of the windscreen. Our Trofeo Pirelli cars have a white strip across the top of the windscreen. And that colour branding, if you will, is also replicated on the graphics that you can see on the left-hand side of the screen. So if you see red, it's a Pirelli driver. If you see white, it's a Pirelli Am driver. Dave, stop talk. Now, here's Nico.
Klaus Zabranson, just to give you some context, emerging from Nürburgring with a 26-point margin over Hendrik Viol. So those are the two drivers who are still in contention for the title, which means you get 15 points for a race win. There is all points for pole position and fastest lap, so it's not quite the 30 points that you would maybe think is the difference you can make up, but it certainly puts Klaus Brands in a firm condition. If he finishes in the points both races, that should be enough. But you know, with the weather and the conditions, it can be very, very quick. You go from P1 to P whatever, just a little bit of a slip into the gravel bed, and all your chances to make your mark in the race can be gone. So it's going to be critical for him to qualify well. It's going to be more critical for him to keep it on the grey stuff come race time.
Yeah, you know, having spoken to Klaus a number of times across the season, he seems quite a cool individual and knows that whilst he will pile the pressure on himself, I don't think he'll let the pressure that he's under really get to him. Oh, that's a nice split shot. Is that not Mr. M. Blancardi down there on the pit wall? Max Blancardi, former multi-Ferrari Challenge champion, of course, talking to one of his drivers that he coaches, wearing the headset there, and yeah, Max Blancardi down there, and yeah, Max, a fine driver in his own right, and darn nice fellow as well, if truth be told. Now, this is interesting. Now, I don't know whether this is part of Klaus's strategy. I'm sure it can't be, because he won't have engineered this, as we can see our champion, Giacomo Altoe, going for his first timed lap. But Klaus Branson has put himself behind Luca Ludwig, knowing jolly well that Luca Ludwig is going to be quick. Might get the benefit of just being able to follow completely in Luca Ludwig's wheel tracks and those of Giacomo Altoe, who's just ahead of both of them. And here comes Giacomo Altoe now. And it looks like in this stage of the qualifying, he potentially could wrestle away the provisional P1 from Luca Ludwig. So the ML Ferrari Racing driver Giacomo Altoe, who has already sealed the Trofeo Pirelli Championship, is looking on for a P1 at the moment. So accelerates now, pit in to the left-hand side of your picture as he heads towards the timing beam. Now it's a 1:53.222 that he's got to beat, and he's done it because he's delivered a 1:52.845. His first drive to go into the 52s. So well done to Giacomo Altoe. He goes fastest by about 3 3/4 tenths over Luca Ludwig. But there are still 20 minutes exactly of this qualifying session, as right now Ben Svalin goes third fastest and Philippe Barron fourth fastest, Nico.
Yeah, indeed, and we see lots of drivers climbing up the order. Axel Sarting, one of them, our Copper Shell champion from 2023, moving up the order. So does Herbert Geis, and with the exception of Marcus Anazzi, who was obviously the gravel earlier, all the drivers now on track, which means traffic is at its peak. As we see the Giacomo Altoe and the ML Ferrari Racing pit crew watching on. What can their driver do? He's currently P1, but several purple first sectors, meaning that not only he is pushing, but so are the other drivers in his category.
Well, he has thus far taken about 3.5 tenths out of his previous best time. As you say, Giacomo is not the only one set in purple sectors. Luca Ludwig doing the same as well. So 19 minutes, as near as makes no difference, remaining on this qualifying session. We have potentially some 25 cars out there on track. Interestingly, Hendrik Viol has not yet ventured out onto the track. And he's the guy that's still in a mathematical position of being able to take the Trofeo Pirelli and Championship. So thus far has not ventured out onto track. So we will see if he does that within the next couple of moments. I would think he's going to have to, as Giacomo Altoe then heads towards the timing beam. A 1:52.845 was his previous best. Make that now a 1:52.262. He's found quite a lump of time. Luca Ludwig was going to cross the line just after him. Here comes Klaus Branson. The order is Altoe, Ludwig, Valent and Barron. And Hendrik Viol, just as I was talking about him, has gone quickest for the Pirelli Am drivers. For Scuderia Prague Racing ahead of Michael Verhagen. Here is Giacomo Altoe, then our Trofeo Pirelli driver, and some super slow-mo replays as he bounces his 296 challenge car across the curbs, of which there are many here at Imola. Something very interesting I learned earlier talking to one of the drivers is that the painted lines on the Imola circuit, by dint of it being a Formula One circuit, of course, the painted lines are less slippery than the painted lines at non-Formula One circuits. They clearly use different consistency of paint for delineating around these circuits. And here comes Hendrik Viol, then dissatisfied with his previous best time, which of course has now been bested by Michael Verhagen. So Hendrik Viol then desperately wants that point, potentially for P1. Every point, but can lead you to a prize. And that's very much uppermost in Hendrik Viol's mind, that's for sure, as he is on his way right now. Scuderia Prague driver Hendrik Viol. So let's see what he can do then. He's got this turn to do, then the dash to the start-finish straight then for Hendrik Viol. And of course the timing line. So he goes back to that P1 position, having taken a tenth and a bit out of the previous best time from Michael Verhagen. This is Herbert Guys then for Maranello Motors, with something of a sideways moment, and he decides to mow the lawn across the exit of the chicane. No harm done, just a little bit of loose grass thrown onto the tarmac just to add to the grip issues that some drivers might have. We ride on board right now with Klaus Zabranson. He needs to respond, Nico, because he's dropped out to P3 in qualifying, and we've got just under 16 minutes of this session remaining.
Yeah, absolutely. For Hendrik Viol, that point and being P1 obviously is paramount. Klaus Zabranson doesn't absolutely have to have pole position, but obviously the higher up the order he starts, the less he's subject to any potential skirmishes ruining his race in the very early parts. And as we said before, you need two very good times, so that is something that the drivers will probably push towards the end, where otherwise they might be satisfied with, okay, I've done a good lap, that I can't do much more. Here today, I think we will see drivers who are high up the order push all the way until the end, because you never know what's going to come. And one of those pushing still is Luca Ludwig, with that very German livery, if I dare say. Lots of red, black and gold on that car. Second sector wasn't quite up to his previous best, but he is currently ranking P1, 151.997, his best lap time. But he could need another very, very good second best lap time as well. As he rounds the final turn, the Rivazza 2 turn, and heads towards the timing line. There you can see it's not a straight, there is that very significant kink. Crosses the timing line. It's not an improvement, but again, that might just be the second best lap time that you could use.
Just as we were watching Luca cross the timing line, Giacomo Altoe improved, and he has delivered a 151.755, which is 2.5 tenths quicker than Luca Ludwig. So into the pit lane comes Klaus Zabranson.
Yeah, indeed, and he's being pushed back, so it's going to be interesting. I mean, we're still halfway.
Yeah, it's still time, isn't it? See a new set of wet weather tyres being prepared to go into that car.
Yeah, that's quite possible. I mean, the tyre regulations are a little bit different between the wets and the slicks, where the slicks you have a clear-cut allocation. It's more loose with the wet tyres. You get a higher allocation just because of the safety factor.
Yeah, of course.
And obviously, in really wet conditions, the drop-off between the very peak condition of the Pirelli P0s, slick tyres, and the wet tyres is not quite as distinct.
No.
So you can do lots more laps on a really, really competitive basis, trying to set the best possible lap time in qualifying on the wets.
Yeah, they have a, providing the track conditions are wet, the durability of the tyre is very, very good, isn't it? You're absolutely right to make mention of that, so the drivers can do more laps without the compromise coming in terms of rubber that is afforded to them. You're absolutely right, and well done you for picking up on that point, which I had not done so. Scuderia Prague then, engineer Hendrik Viol will be pretty satisfied, I would suggest, with his performance thus far. Hendrik Viol, of course, still in with the chance of the championship. He needs probably, I think it's fair to say, Nico, that he kind of needs Klaus Zabranson to fall over a little bit, and that would certainly help his quest, as currently is the best of the Pirelli AM drivers. Klaus Branson, currently third fastest of the Pirelli AM drivers. Herbert Geis, the Trofeo Pirelli AM driver, who has certainly found the grass earlier on in the session, now finds that power sliding the car around that turn is not necessarily going to be the quickest way round there. And Herbert then, who is a delightful character, a great driver as well. He once again finds the car pointing in the wrong direction, but will recover from that very, very quickly. Here is Hendrik Viol that we go back to right now. He's got traffic ahead of him, and traffic has formed part of the session, all session long. The one driver that's not been out yet is Luigi Coluccio, Nico, who is a Pirelli driver who hasn't shown his face in the session so far, as Hendrik Viol now, his lap perhaps a little bit compromised by the car ahead of him. He continues on his way. Sector 2, as you can see, look, that played a part in his overall lap time. So Hendrik will go for another lap, I would suggest. Sector 1 was purple, Sector 2 not so. Let's see if he can build it all up in Sector 3 and undo the wrongs, if you will, of the traffic that faced him earlier on. 11 minutes remaining. Qualifying for Trofeo Pirelli and Trofeo Pirelli AM Ferrari Challenge Europe drivers. The final hurrah of our 2024 championship season. But it's not the only racing this weekend, as Nico mentioned right at the start of our program. The big world final races to come on Sunday as well. The races that I've always titled kind of the gold roof races, where you're pitched up against the best of the competitors from around the world. And here Hendrik Viol in that number 92 car, super slow-mo shot. Love that shot of the 296 Challenge car being piloted by Hendrik Viol on its way. And maintains his P1 position within class. Giacomo Alto has also dived into the pits, as has Benz Verlint and Philippe Barron. Should mention Philippe Barron, fourth fastest overall, and that's fourth fastest within class for the Trofeo Pirelli cars. And there we can see there are still plenty of cars out there, and trying to deliver the best lap times they can. I'm not sure whether the rain has just abated a little bit and whether it's turned into being a bit drizzly now, because the reason I mention that is whilst all the cars will follow roughly the same line around the track, it just looks like there is a marked difference between the racing line and every other part of the track. So I just wonder whether the rain has subsided a little, maybe not. No. Okay, well, Hendrik Viol then, what has he delivered thus far? A 153.780. That's what he's got to try and get on terms with. As Luca Ludwig tries to get on terms with, I think that's the Otto Blank car ahead of him. Maybe it's Klaus Branson. No, it is Klaus Branson. And both of those cars making their way past Gianmarco Mazzuletti, I believe. And Luca Ludwig then, purple sector 1, but sector 2 has really rather failed this lap, I think, Nico, before going for it one more time, as the band Daft Punk said.
Yeah, one more time is what it's all about. Philippe Barron, he was just in the pits, he's coming out, also doing it one more time, as we see another car dive into pit lane. And with 8 minutes and 30 seconds or so remaining, it means whoever is coming out of pit lane is going out for a last attempt at getting those two significant lap times into the timing system. Giacomo Alto still leads Luca Ludwig, Benz Verlint and Philippe Barron, the latter of the two, just on their out lap, trying to get onto the front row with Hendrik Viol, Michael Verhagen and Klaus Branson are top three. As we see a lap time being deleted for Danilo Del Favaro. Lap time is obviously not as big a topic here in the wet as in the dry, even though the very delicate and advantageous paint on this Imola circuit, it's still a little bit treacherous on the curbs, and you can't attack them quite as much as you could in the dry conditions. Very fair point.
Once again, quite well made. Hendrik Viol then, the sector times didn't look so brilliant for that lap, but he's continuing. There's 7.5 minutes remaining of the session, and still quite a few cars out there. Hendrik Viol, who has put himself P3 in the qualifying overall, Nico. And this is seeing Klaus Branson drop down to P4 within class. So Hendrik Viol has seemingly got the measure of the track, Nico, got the measure of the conditions, and thus far he's looking pretty competent out there. And this might be something of a great rehearsal for the weather conditions to come for the races across the weekend, because the forecast, I regret to say, is not particularly favourable, is it?
No, indeed. And we do have a separate qualifying for the World Finals, wherein a few years ago the grid for World Finals started to be set in qualifying one for the final races. Now that has changed. It's all down to Saturday in terms of grid positions. But still, you want to get into the rhythm, you want to feel one with the car on the track, and especially when the weather conditions are supposed to be the same across pretty much all days here, finding the confidence, even if you're not in the running for the championship in your region anymore, is of paramount importance.
I'd mentioned that Luigi Coluccio had not been out on track. Well, he certainly is now. And he's currently 6th fastest in class. So Luigi Coluccio then just drifts the back end of the car out of that turn, which is really rather entertaining for us to watch. It's not necessarily the quickest way out of the turn, but Luigi Coluccio is on a mission right now to put himself to the sharp end of qualifying for Trofeo Pirelli if he can. As he breaks the timing beam, he does improve one place. Is P7 overall, but P5 within the Trofeo Pirelli class, which is being led by Giacomo Altoe. Then it's Luca Ludwig. Hendrik Viol, he is P1 for our Pirelli AM drivers. Then it's Mikael Verhagen. Then it's Kojaya, and then it is Klaus Branson. So Klaus Branson is kind of not where he would perhaps like to be in this qualifying session. 5 minutes remaining. Here comes Philip Barron then, the, dare I say it, the old timer, the old campaigner, the man that has won so many Ferrari Challenge races. He's not only worn the t-shirt, but actually has had to throw it away again because it's been ironed so many times. Such has been his success over the years as a racing driver. And now, as you can see, the young man transfers his success really to a team management role, but he still likes to get his hands dirty and do some gardening now and again as he shortcuts that chicane. But Philip Barron was gifted the opportunity of a drive this year and has taken it, and he's lost none of his prowess, Nico.
Yeah, absolutely, and so is Giacomo Altoe. Although, as you can say, he's not on a quick one. Luca Ludwig looked to be on a very quick one, but on the final sector, whether it was traffic or whatever, lost 7/10 there, okay. Which means that he stays in P2, a 10.5 off the Giacomo Altoe time. So with 4 minutes and change remaining, it's those top three drivers who are really pushing. So is Hendrik Viol, who's also very quick, and again putting in personal bests. It may be that the track is drying out just a little bit, and the drivers are dissipating more water than is coming down in the same period of time.
That's interesting, because Giacomo Altoe almost following identical wheel tracks to Philip Barron on that chicane. Yeah,
which maybe just prove that it's actually not drying out, but that the brake points are not moving backwards, but potentially forwards. Or it might just be a case of Giacomo Altoe pushing once again, really on the edge, and just that little bit over the edge.
And the reason he's pushing is because so is this man, Luca Ludwig, who's currently second fastest in Trofeo Pirelli. But he's going for it with purple sector 1 and purple sector 2. The Mertel Motorsport driver, Luca Ludwig, then, he and Giacomo Altoe have had some really intensive battles this season. But I have to say, the fighting between the two talented young drivers has been fraught but fair at all times, and there's healthy respect between the drivers as well. It's been a joy to behold as Luca Ludwig heads towards breaking the timing beam now. His target is a 151.755.
Not quite there.
Lost it in the last sector, didn't he?
Yeah, once again, it was the final sector that has caught him out a number of times thus far, and there is Giacomo Altoe. This lap might be an improvement. navigated the chicane fairly well. He will have to find a little bit of time in the final sectors, or final sector rather, with 2.5 minutes remaining. Where has this qualifying session gone? But it's not all over yet. We see lots of personal bests and a few trajectories for improvement. Giacomo Altoe, will he improve on this attempt? He's certainly not safe and dry yet, with Luka Ludwig still pushing. The 151.755 he said earlier, it's not quite there.
Nearly 2/10 down.
But again, you need 2 good lap times
Yeah,
here.
fair point.
And that means even though it's not an improvement, it can still matter. We don't have a live count of what the second best lap times is. We'll bring you that later on, and obviously you will find it. Ludwig, this time around only 5/100ths off the pace through 2 sectors. There is our leader in the championship in Pirelli AM.
Klaus Sebranson then, who obviously in the closing stages of this has come out to reassert his authority, if you will, on the Trofeo Pirelli AM Championship. He desperately needs that additional point for pole position. Now, of course, if Klaus could set first fastest lap and second fastest lap, then, well, that would give him a real boost of confidence going into the race. Luka Ludwig decides he has done enough with only a minute remaining. He's not going to go again. Hendrik Viol, Mikkel Verhagen ahead of Danilo Del Fabro, third fastest for the Pirelli AM drivers. Giacomo Altoe on an improvement trajectory. It was the middle sector that let him down last time, Nico. This time around, the middle sector has found favor as he's gone purple in both Sector 1 and Sector 2. That means quicker than anybody out there on track. So, Giacomo Altoe, he's already leading, but he's not satisfied with that. He feels he's got more to give and more to accomplish and more to gain. And a 151.755 is in his target sights. What can he do as he breaks the timing beam now? He is 3.6 tenths down, a 151.396. That was a brilliant lap from Giacomo Altoe, Nico.
Yeah, and that certainly, I think, settles the deal in terms of both pole positions for Giacomo Altoe. He's already clinched the championship, so that's not in question anymore, but it shows his prowess. And there is Michael Verhagen. He is not in the running for the championship in the AMS, but he's really mixing it up with the top drivers there. He's currently in P2, and he's still pushing to maybe get an improvement, leapfrog Hendrik Viol, which would play dramatically into the dynamic of the championship. And he's now at the Variante Alta, the high chicane, and now running down towards the Rivazza turns, and the checkered flag is out, as you saw. So this is the final attempt. Michael Verhagen, can he steal away pole position in Pirelli AM from Hendrik Viol?
Well, we are just a few seconds from finding out as he power slides out of that turn. That will have cost him some valuable 100ths, and he does the same on the second. That may have done for him, because Sector 2, Nico, was not looking brilliant. The Ferrari Warsaw driver heads towards the timing beam now. And it's second fastest. He stays second fastest. Hendrik Viol, I think, has probably done enough, but Klaus Sebranson is still out there. Is he on an improvement trajectory, Nico?
No, I don't think so. And actually, he has seen the checkered flag, so no more improvement to be expected from him. Hanno Laskowski, he is still out there. He's still trying. He's currently only P10 in class, lowly by his standards. Maybe he can do something about it. There is our pole sitter overall, Giacomo Altoe. As we wrap up this qualifying session, who can still do something about their current position? Hanno Laskowski indeed moved up one place, leapfrogging Herbert Geiss in that all-German battle.
And what a battle that will be.
Yeah, there is Giacomo Altoe, and for the very first time this afternoon, not quite sure where he's supposed to go. Had no problems of that sort while the session was live and while he was chasing times. He's done it again. He's our champion in Europe, and he is champion of this quali session. Doubly so, we believe. Fastest time, second fastest time. Giacomo Altoe, ML Ferrari Racing, his 296 challenge will reign supreme on the grid as we get the results. If I interpret this shot correctly in but a few moments' time. Well, that was prophecy, wasn't it?
Goodness me. Get you to do my lottery numbers. Giacomo Altoe from Luca Ludwig, Ben Svalinton, Philip Barron. They're the top four, and they are Pirelli drivers. Best of the AM drivers, Hendrik Fiol, Mikael Verhagen, and Danilo Del Favaro. Good quality, Danilo. Wouter Branson, fourth in class, P9 overall. Luigi Coluccio in the mix, and so too Max Mugelli. That's the first page, ahead of Axel Sadigan. And then it's David Kajaya, James Owen, Andrew Morrow, Hanno Luskowski, Herbert Guys, Angelo Fontana, Kim Eriksson, and Otto Blank occupy and complete the second page of what is a big, big entry for Trofeo Pirelli and Trofeo Pirelli AM here at Finale Mondiali. And it's Andreas Berg Sorensen, David Gosner, Gianmarco Mazzialetti, David Akabadze, Marco Zanazzi, and Armin Arifpour that complete the 25 cars out there for qualifying. Ferrari Challenge Finale Mondiali, Copa Shell and 488 qualifying will follow shortly. Bye-bye for now. Welcome to qualifying for our 488 Challenge. Drivers in this, the Ferrari Challenge 2024 season. And the final hurrah for our 488 cars, it has to be said, who have competed all season long and have done a very good job of so doing. We are here at Imola for the Finale Mondiale event, which looks like that when the sun is shining and looks like this when the sun is not shining. 'Tis a tad damp at the moment. I've just been out to check, and the weather conditions are improving, it has to be said, in that it's not raining so much now. 4.9 kilometers, 21 turns, 12 left, 9 right, anti-clockwise track configuration here at Imola. That's what faces our 488 Challenge drivers, all 11 of them that will be out there for their qualifying session. Temperature is 20 degrees, air temperature is 19 degrees at the moment. The pit lane is open, the session is underway. And Nico, they've only got 20 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is kind of the first part of a double qualifying, which combines the 488 Challenge competitors as well as the competitors from the Copper Shell who run the new 296 Challenge cars. And there are so many of them combined that we split them into mini qualifying sessions, but for the race they will be combined, but as a trade-off for having the track to themselves in class, they only get 20 minutes, which is especially difficult when you have to set two good times, because as we've said, for Pirelli, the same applies here. The best lap time will set your grid position for race 1. The second best will set your grid position for race 2. So in those 20 minutes, you have to get at least 2 very good competitive lap times in. And we will see how our competitors in the 488 Challenge, including Tommy Lindroth and Pino Frascaro, who we can see on track, getting familiarized with the levels of adhesion around this Imola circuit. And as you can see, there is still lots of spray coming off, but it has subsided in terms of precipitation, that's for sure.
And that's going to be, in my opinion, quite critical, because the Imola circuit, if it stops raining, can dry out quite quickly. And the thing is, wet weather tyres work brilliantly when it's wet. When it's an in-between condition, which it certainly isn't at the moment, it's still very, very damp out there. But maybe not for this session, but for our Copa Shell drivers, you know, to keep those wet weather tyres in their operating window, they need to be kept damp. So we might see some different lines being used here to try and keep the cars and those tyres in those conditions. Manuel Agostina, who we will be seeing in the Copa Shell qualifying in around about 20 minutes time. You could see there, it's a warm welcome back to Manuel Agostina, who's had a period of not feeling so well, so we're delighted that you're back, Manu, and we wish you well for your qualifying session, which will follow in around about 20 minutes. Meantime, Tommy Lindroth, who's been a race winner this year and has had several podiums this year, richly deserved, it has to be said, because he's been coached by Fabien Volvend, which kind of sounds like I'm attributing all the success to Fabien. That's not true. Tommy's had to pedal the car. Fabienne's not here this weekend, though. She's elsewhere, so Tommy's got to take on board everything that he has gleaned from Fabienne and deliver us. We see Alexei Komarov, the Scuderia Prague driver, driving off the 211 car for Scuderia Prague, and we'll see what Alexei can do. So Quinn Vitalis back, who is a talented young driver, Nico, really impressed us at Nürburgring.
Yeah, absolutely, and didn't have it all his own way. A little bit of an up and down weekend, but certainly made the most of it on Sunday. As if I remember correctly, he came out victorious and was visibly delighted on the podium.
Absolutely. It's been a story, really, of the Ferrari Challenge over the last few years, where we see really talented young drivers making their name for themselves. And if I look at the 488 Challenge, and I just want to give a mention to our North American cousins that have raced the 488 Challenge all season long as well. And another young, talented driver, Massimo Perina, who sealed the North American 488 Challenge Championship, having won virtually everything he could, having banked nearly every point that he could. I mean, he is an absolute superstar, and I've been pressuring his dad into telling me what Massimo will be doing next year, because there is no doubt about it that Massimo Perina is like Quinn Wiedlisbach, a very talented young driver, and yeah, be interesting to see. But as I say, it's a trait, if you will, of the Ferrari Challenge, where we're seeing young drivers using the Ferrari Challenge as a real springboard to furthering their racing careers, Nico. Sven Schirmer has gone quickest of anyone.
Indeed, and it is not without sadness that, according to our information, and it's not been officially verified because we haven't seen the registration documents for 2025, we believe this is the last event in Europe where we will see the 488 Challenge competing, because next year we understand it's going to be all 296s in the Ferrari Challenge Europe. It's happened many times that we have 1 year with the previous car and the new car running in parallels, and this is the year 2024 where we have seen the 296 and the 488, but we believe that this is indeed the last hurrah for the 488s. This weekend on Sunday it will be the final race, but for now it's qualifying for the races which will happen tomorrow and on Friday. Very, very weird weekend structure, because it mostly isn't a weekend, it happens mostly during the week, and we're delighted that you're already joining us on the Wednesday. You've set your calendars and alarms correctly, as we see Maurizio Pitori cross the timing line with nothing like a competitive lap time, but we do see some obviously personal bests, but more overall bests. And there is the man who's been doing everything right this season, and
Except that,
as I was just starting the sentence, talk about commentator's curse, and he's not the only one, and maybe, well, certainly the grip wasn't there. I don't know if there was any other fluid than water on that part in the Acqua Minerale corner.
It's appropriately named.
Indeed. Well, anyway, Fabrizio Fontana, he was the master, the dominator in the 488. He was missing from Nürburgring, but he already sealed the championship back in Le Castellet, so he could breathe easy and just watch what the others were doing. But he's back with a vengeance. He's already sealed the championship in Europe. He's got to go for the world title on Sunday for sure, but for now it's still regular duties in the 488 Challenge Europe, where he has to hold off forward, and he hasn't had his own way back in Le Castellet, where he was beaten both in qualifying and in the race for the very first time. One of the drivers who beat him was Joachim Olander, who's not here, but one of those who were really, really quick was Faisal Shahir. And he hasn't set a time yet, but we expect very good things from him as well. Maurizio Pitori, he's not going at anything like top qualifying speed, it looks like, but we will find out once he finishes the lap. 12.5 minutes only remaining, so it goes really, really quickly, considering that we don't really have the very, very good times we expect on the time screen just as of yet. 2:75, that is Sven Schirmer, who is currently reigning supreme in this quali session with a 2:03.265, and he's still pushing, as you can see, 8.5 tenths quicker through 2 sectors as he climbs up the last part. This is the highest point of the track, heading towards the Acqua Minerale, and from there on out it drops all the way into the Rivazza turns and back onto the home straight.
Yes, Rivazza 1, Rivazza 2, back end of the car, stepping out just a little bit. These are the 488 Challenge cars. And as Nico has indicated, this could be the last hurrah, if you will, for the 488 cars. And Sven Schirmer then making his way around as we get to the final 2 turns now for the 275 car Ferrari Katowice. Sven Schirmer heading now towards the start-finish straight, which isn't straight here at Imola. If you know anything about this track, you know that it jolly well isn't, because of the kinks that are on that start-finish straight, and banks a time which is about a tenth and a half slower than previous. It is Schirmer from Lindroth from Fabrizio Fontana. And in replay then, super slow-mo, you can see how they really wrestle these cars around the undulating curbs that exist here at Imola. And the Ferrari Katowice driver Sven Schirmer then, whose resplendent yellow car is looking altogether more dirty now with the wet conditions that we find here at Imola. Good lap from Tommy Lindroth. Can he improve from P3? Sector 1, well, no. He's Sector 1 was purple, but Sector 2 and Sector 3 were personal bests. Tommy needs to find a little bit more. Fabrizio Fontana currently second fastest, as Nico said. Fabrizio Fontana, such has been his dominance this year. He sealed the championship, as you say, at Le Castellet. Missed out on the Nürburgring round due to other commitments, which was always the case. And they were long-standing commitments, and he was always going to be missing from Nürburgring, but he's back with a vengeance. What can he do to wrestle away that pole position time that currently sits with this man that we follow the back end of now? And that's Sven Schirmer, who is going quicker again, but so too is Fabrizio Fontana in response.
Absolutely, and we see other drivers very, very quick. Pino Frascaro, Quinn Wietlersbach, we already spoke about him previously. Will that have compromised that from Sven Schirmer, the traffic through the chicane? I'm not quite sure. You can sometimes even benefit from traffic when you get a little bit of a draft, but it has to be just the right moment. I'm not sure if it's here, and especially with the dry line developing on the racing line, when you go off that line, immediately there is the spray, there is more moisture, and that really compromises grip. And that means, especially in these conditions, there is really only one quick way around the track.
Very good point that you are making, Sven Schirmer. Oh, it's a drag race to the timing line now. And, well, you can see that he does manage to get past the car that was somewhat balking him. As Fabrizio Fontana, who has no such traffic conditions to contend with. And therefore, I venture a gamble here that this is going to be a new P1 time. And indeed it is. And it's a new P1 time by quite a margin, 1.3 seconds quicker for Fabrizio Fontana, the Formula Racing driver who's delivered a 2:01.954.
Absolutely. Quinn Wietlersbach with a decent lap time, but didn't quite fulfill on the promise that the first two sectors had, so he will certainly go again, and Sven Schirmer does as well. Good first sector again. As we saw, he's got more in him than the current 2:03.265 if he can complete the lap without any traffic, but he obviously has to replicate what he did the last time around, which is possible, but certainly not a given. He has to pedal the car and do it all over again as he goes through the Acqua Minerale. No issues with grip here. He carefully avoids the curves as to not be taken out there. And again, very, very good second sector as well. After two sectors, 8.5 tenths quicker than the current Fabrizio Fontana time, who, however, is also trying to push and improve once again.
So Sven Schirmer then, as he will run downhill now under the big Finale Mondiali 2024 banner. I remind you that that's the event that we are at this week and this weekend coming. The celebration of everything that's great and good about the Prancing Horse, and there's a lot to talk about and a lot to be enjoyed at this particular weekend. Heading for home now is Sven Schirmer then. It's P2 at the moment. Will this become a new provisional P1? As he breaks the timing beam, indeed so. The chunks of time that are coming out now, Nico, are so huge, I'm beginning to wonder whether when it comes to the Shell drivers that will be out next, whether anyone is going to take a gamble on tyres. It's probably still too damp.
Well,
but towards the end of the session...
I was about to say, I'm sure that the drivers will put a banker in on wets, but once you've got your 2 laps in, maybe towards the end, you might see someone come out and do a gamble. Remember, you still have to put in 2 good lap times.
Yes.
No, one is, I don't want to say no good, but not good enough. And that also applies to the likes of Sven Schirmer and Fabrizio Fontana. Sven Schirmer has done a good lap, but he still needs another one. There is Spencer Valent, who's already done his job in qualifying, and there was Tibor Valent alongside his father, who's still coming up after this qualifying session later on.
And talking to them both was Vitantonio Liuzzi, former Formula One driver and, of course, driver coach to the Valent family, Nico.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So Fabrizio Fontana, he is pushing again for that best or second best lap. First sector, certainly a very good one, but now he's trying to contend with traffic and not get hindered and held up too much.
So talking to Fabrizio on the radio is Stefano Guy.
He's got a new haircut, as we saw. And,
is that not a new hair colour as well? Has he been dyeing that?
No, he wouldn't dye that. No. He's still a young man.
Sorry, Stefano.
It just comes out more flamboyantly.
That's it. I'm in for a telling off from Stefano. Right, here comes Fabrizio Fontana. Now, Nico, the point you mentioned about the traffic that he encountered definitely has not played into his hands through Sector 2. So, it's Sven Schirmer, P1, Fabrizio Fontana, P2, Alexei Komarov is P3, and then it's Quinn Vitalis back. So I think that this lap from Fabrizio Fontana is not going to be good enough to wrestle away Sven Schirmer, but I could be wrong. He could have made it all up in Sector 3, but he hasn't. So he's some 4 seconds down on that particular lap. So Fabrizio will go again. And traffic playing its part, perhaps in compromising Fabrizio Fontana's lap, as well as the potentially bouncing it over the curbs, as indeed he did in the 488 Challenge car there. So Fabrizio Fontana, who's done a supreme job this season, and indeed is the 488 Challenge champion.
Yeah, indeed. There is our current provisional pole setter for race 1. And he's pushing again. First sector wasn't challenging his own overall best time, but he still needs a very good second best lap time, as does Fabrizio Fontana, as does Quinn Vitersbach, who are also still pushing. The one thing that thus far hasn't come back is the rain, because all of a sudden, you know, with rain coming down harder again, that would eliminate any chance for an improvement, but that's always up in the air, quite literally.
Literally, yes.
But it hasn't come down, so you can see Fabrizio Fontana, he is now stretching his legs. No traffic currently, although there is a 2-car combo over the crest, and he will hope that those two are going at a pace that won't compromise him.
Yes, let's see as he gets to this chicane now, bounces the car over the curbs. I mean, he's certainly going to be on those cars before the end of this lap, Nico. Thus far, when I looked at the cumulative lap time, he was doing very, very well indeed. So Fabrizio Fontana is undaunted and unhindered by cars ahead. Good gentlemanly driving there, where you don't compromise a faster car coming down the hill, and certainly didn't. So Fabrizio Fontana will head for home now. And will he be able to find the time that he needs to wrestle away that 2:00.516 and perhaps even get into the low 150s? Well, no, not quite, but it was quicker. 2.2 tenths quicker, so 2:00.288 from Fabrizio Fontana. That's a new provisional pole. Sven Schirmer, I feel sure, will try and respond.
Yeah, and he's already doing that. By my reckoning, it would be Fabrizio Fontana currently on pole for race 1, Sven Schirmer for race 2.
Okay.
But that can still change, and other drivers like Quinn Vitersbach, Alexei Komarov might still play a part. We talked about Faisal Shahir at the beginning of the session.
Yes.
He was very quick. He hasn't shown in this qualifying session, and we don't quite know why that is, but he certainly hasn't figured, and he hasn't come out of the pit lane yet, which would probably mean he has to start from the back of the pack for both of the races. But let's focus on the drivers who are out on track. Fabrizio Fontana, he is pushing again. Sven Schirmer also trying, but not quite up to speed yet. But he will have one more chance.
You took the words right out of my mouth. And he's going to get another lap in, but he's going to need that lap, because this one, Nico, is not going to do it for him. So it's Fabrizio Fontana, who I can tell you through Sector 1 and Sector 2 has already gone purple, whereas Sven Schirmer, as you can see, the Ferrari Katowice driver, on this lap, it's not where it needs to be. He's going to cross the timing line, though, with time in hand for him to be able to pursue another lap as the clouds darken overhead. But for the moment, the precipitation remains in the clouds. It's not come down yet. So here we go then. This is the last gun saloon for Sven Schirmer. This is his last opportunity as Fabrizio Fontana then, as I say, on a trajectory to improve. As we're watching Sven Schirmer, Fabrizio Fontana is improving. And let's see As we see the back end and front end right now of the Tommy Lindroth car. Well, Fabrizio Fontana, I can tell you from the timing screen, lost time in the final sector. Tommy Lindroth, personal best, sector 1, personal best, sector 2. He's currently 5th fastest behind Alexei Komarov. Is this going to trouble some of those drivers in front of Tommy Lindroth at the moment? Well, let's see as he heads towards the timing beam right now. Is it an improvement for Tommy Lindroth? It is by 1 place. He now finds himself P4 ahead of Alexei Komarov. 22 seconds of this session remaining, and Fabrizio Fontana is mired in traffic. And Fabrizio Fontana accelerates out, but this is really going to compromise his lap. You can see the blue flags being waved to advise those drivers a faster driver is approaching from behind, but in my opinion, Nico, the damage is done.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, this is the peculiar thing about this quali session. He is P1, so theoretically you would think, yeah, whatever. But we believe that he's P1 only for race 1. P2, the second best lap time, we believe goes the way of Sven Schirmer, who also is not able to challenge Fabrizio Fontana for that P1 overall position. So we will find the official results at the end. Tommy Lindroth, meanwhile, he is sneakily trying to get on terms with those on the front row. First sector was a personal best and fairly good. It looks like he might still be in for an improvement. Will it be row 1? Maybe not, but maybe an improvement overall, as Sven Schirmer just put another very, very good lap time. On the final sector, he did find quite a lot of time, and it was only by 7/100ths of a second that he missed out on snatching P1 for race 1 away from this driver. Fabrizio Fontana holds on, hangs on almost, and dives into the pit lane.
So I think that's fair to say, but that's just about job done for that qualifying session for our 488 Challenge cars. With Fabrizio Fontana, we know he's fastest in this qualifying session. We still think Sven Schirmer will have the second fastest lap, which will give him pole position for the second race. As you can see, our Shell drivers and engineers and cars are standing by to get out there on track for their qualifying session. And in replay, this is the 269 car of Fabrizio Fontana, who has taken the P1 for that qualifying session overall. So well done to Fabrizio Fontana, already the 2024 Ferrari 488 Challenge champion. So clear track ahead. We'll get the full results, of course, from our 488 Challenge qualifying up on screen in graphics for you in just a moment from now. In fact, as I speak, there they are. Fabrizio Fontana then ahead of Sven Schirmer, Quinn Wiedlisbach and Tommy Lindroth. They are the top 4, and they're ahead of Alexei Komarov. Maurizio Pittori, Pino Frascaro and Nils Branson occupy the next 4 places, and they were ahead of Gerardo Marino, Germano Salernitano and Faisal Shayer, neither of whom posted a time in the qualifying session. So there we have it, 488 qualifying done and dusted, which means it will be time for our Copa Shell drivers to take to the track then.
Yeah, and you can already see them lined up in the lights at the end of the pit lane. So it's only going to be a matter of 2 minutes and change before we get underway. But before we switch over to Copa Shell, here are some super slow-mo of our 488 drivers in their last qualifying session for Europe. Tommy Lindroth. Diminutive in stature, humongous in character. There is Sven Schirmer, who gave Fabrizio Fontana all he could handle and then some in this qualifying session. A really, really nice and entertaining battle among them. And as we believe, with different outcomes for the 2 respective races, the 275 car of Sven Schirmer.
Going to be interesting 2 races in the 488 Challenge. Fabrizio Fontana, of course, you can see here, has already sealed the championship, but you want to go out on a high, Nico, by winning every race you possibly can. I think he might meet some stiff competition from the likes of Sven Schirmer and Quinn Wiedlisbach and also Tommy Lindroth this weekend. So here we are then for qualifying for our shell drivers. Nico, what do you think of that track? Because at the moment there's no rain coming down. I think perhaps, potentially, maybe, are there any other words I can use there to indicate my vagaries in terms of thought? But I think by the end of the session, maybe half a dry line might be possible.
Yeah, I would agree. I think the drivers...
Oliver Fendel is looking at me as if to say, you're nuts, Dave.
Well, you know, that's...
Which would be fair.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to get into that. But there is certainly a theory that once you've set your bankers, and if it stays dry, and you have the feeling that the line is dry enough, the track is dry enough, you can risk it at the end.
You could gamble, couldn't you?
Yeah.
What you don't want to do is bin the car, though.
That is true. As we go green for this quali session, well, the lights are still red, still red, still red, still red. Oh, I timed that poorly. But
yeah, but in fairness, the graphics indicate a green flag.
Yeah, and so does our timing screen. The only thing who doesn't confirm is the light, as you can see quite visibly.
The man in charge of the button has just put his T down and pressed the button.
There we are. Press the button, which, you know, you're already losing half a minute in terms of time, which in a 20-minute session might come into play. Oliver Fendel alongside is playing the weather frog and indicating...
That's an insult. That's an insult. I wouldn't put up with that, Oliver.
Indicating the weather radar, and I didn't quite see it, but I think he's the harbinger of doom as far as dry lines are concerned.
Oliver Fendel, when's the rain coming?
30 minutes from now.
1-3 or 3-0? Right, 3-0 minutes from now, according to his radar, which means, Nico, with another 20-minute session, my thought process that towards the end of this session it's going to be possible, the rain is not going to come before then, therefore I still think that's a possibility.
Well, unless there was a red flag and we delayed the session. But anyway, let's focus on what's happening, and what's happening is Motohiko Isozaki. Such a lovable, great character who wears his emotion for the Ferrari brand and everything on his sleeves. I mean, he was the champion in Coppa Shell-Am, and he still, towards the end of this season, when the Coppa Shell-Am drivers come in to Parc Fermé, he is standing alongside and clapping. That's his dedication and commitment. It's just enjoyable. It's just so enjoyable, and so is it enjoyable to see him work in the car, to be honest.
He is the illustration of enthusiasm personified, is Motohiko Isozaki. This is Corinna Gostner, and ahead of her is Manuela Gostner, the Gostner sisters. This is Corinna then for CDP MP Racing, and ahead of her is her sister Manuela, and as I mentioned right at the start of this program, it's delighted to see Manuela Gostner back out on track and behind the wheel of the car. Not for any reason other than the fact she's felt a bit poorly over the last few weeks, and there was question marks as to whether she would make it to the Finale Mondiale in terms of being able to be in the car, but thankfully she's improved sufficiently to be able to do so, and we're delighted about that. So, right. So we have some 18 Ferrari Challenge Coppa Shell cars, and of course the Coppa Shell Championship, Nico, for 2024 has been sealed this year, and it's been sealed by Henri Acide, the driver from Kessel Racing, who has won the championship. However, P2 in the championship is still up for grabs in terms of Coppa Shell drivers. And we can see the Coppa Shell cars getting about their business and doing what they can in this qualifying session. And Andrzej Lewandowski promised much when he made his debut in the Coppa Shell category of the Ferrari Challenge, and we're expecting to see good things from Andrzej during the course of this session. Bear in mind, fastest lap time will give you pole position for race 1. Second fastest lap time will give you pole position for race 2. Also delighted to see back the Pellin Racing driver Thor Haugen, who returns to the Ferrari Challenge in Courchevel this weekend. See you back door. And we continue to follow the 160 car of Andrzej Lewandowski.
Yeah, another driver who we're happy to see back is Willem van der Worm, who we've not seen out in this qualifying session, but he is on the entry list. And I haven't seen him in the paddock yet, but we will hopefully see him.
I believe that Willem was on the original entry list and perhaps isn't on the second version as John Dillon. In the 151 car, the Great Wall Nottingham driver is on something of a mission right now. So we'll see what John Dillon can do. The Great Wall Nottingham driver who, of course, took his first win in the challenge this year, and richly deserved, I think everyone would agree. John Dillon has really come on and very nearly come off as he wrestled away the curve. But we've seen more than once how John has got the ability to save the car, and he saved it then. So John is exploring the absolute limits of adhesion, that's for sure, in his quest to try and get that P1 position. Let's see how John Dillon can do. Also good to see James Wyland back in the car as well. He will be out there qualifying shortly, Nico. So it's a big bunch of cars out there, and the 151 car driven by John Dillon right now is going to try and put it to the top of the charts, which at the moment is held by Thomas Gosner and then Henri Acide. It's been a real ding-dong battle between John Dillon and Henri Acide and Manuel Gosner, actually, to put the three protagonists together in this Courchevel Championship. They've had some fantastic fights, Nico, that's for sure. But John Dillon goes P1 with a 157.350. And this was John, who took quite a lot of that curb, but held onto the car remarkably well. And in so doing, went quicker than anybody else, Nico.
Yeah, absolutely. There is Henri Acide, the H2 painted on the side of the car. And
can I just say, that caught me out so many times with Henri.
it's the 112.
Because it looks like 112, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, it does. There you can almost see it as he follows Thomas Gosner. He had to follow Manuela Gosner, and which is not a bad thing necessarily. It's a bad thing if you want to overtake and be P1. Then you don't want another car in front of you. Whatever you think, Dave. I was only talking in racecraft
Yeah,
terms.
of course.
There is John Dillon, who got famous win back in Portimao, and he's trying to replicate that, and ideally he would like to replicate it on Sunday. Wouldn't that be something for him to take the World Finals? But you can kind of say that about all the drivers.
Of course.
It's their goal when they're not in the championship chase for the continental honors anymore, or at least not for P1. There is still pride in P2 and P3, of course, but then the focus somewhat goes towards, you know, I can make the most of the season now if I just win that one race on Sunday at Imola.
I wanted to point out to you, not there necessarily, because that's quite a low part of the track. When you look at some of the higher parts of the track, and we were just looking at a great shot as we watched John Dillon, I really, really do think, and I know we've only got 12.5 minutes of this session remaining, but I do think the tarmac is looking different in certain places. Right, Manuela Gosner has gone fastest in Sector 1 and also Sector 2, Nico. She's currently P10 as we see JD cross the timing line, and that was a commentator's curse, wasn't it?
Yep, I guess so. Manuela Gosner will send you an invoice for that. I think a red flag is coming up because I don't think that she can salvage the car from there, and while she's beached there is no chance for an improvement. But for now, the clock is still ticking down. We only got 12 minutes remaining, and there is the red flag. 11 minutes, 59 seconds remaining. And
back end of the car just getting away, and unfortunately nothing she could do about the car being dumped into the gravel trap. And once you're in that gravel trap does exactly what it's designed to do, and it's stop the car. And yeah, no rescue. It's from there. It's not going to be a long time getting out of there, I don't think. As we can see, interestingly, that lap time has been deleted for Michael Martin, the Maranello Motors driver, for cutting turn 15. So
that's the chicane. That's the high chicane. That probably means missed the break point by a little bit and then decided to just go a little bit more straight than the track designers thought it was appropriate. And well, you know, by the time the lap is ruined, you can kind of go straight there. Better than bin it.
This is going to be a very tight session now.
Oh yes.
Because we're going to have 12 minutes remaining. Henri Acid quickest. Ernst Kirkmeyer is second fastest. Andrzej Lewandowski third fastest. John Dillon fourth fastest. Then it's Alexander Nussbaumer, Andreas Rizzi for the top 6 at the moment. Now the other thing to bear in mind is if our meteorologist friend from Munich in Germany is correct, we're going to be right on the cusp of when the rain should be arriving towards the end of the session, which completely pours water on my suggestion of maybe 1 or 2 drivers being brave enough to put the slick tyres on towards the end of the session. So at this point, I'm going to engage reverse, get my coat, and say that's it.
No, that's it right now. We're still 11 minutes, 59 seconds of net qualifying time, plus whatever lap you are on. But the plot thickens quite considerably for the remainder of this Copper Shell qualifying session. It's 5 minutes to 4 p.m. locally, as we see the last of the drivers come in and file into pit lane.
Plenty of tyre pressure adjustments going on, but no one rushing around with tyre trolleys, Nico.
Yeah, that is true. We get the information that the pit lane will reopen 18 seconds from now, as we see a few super slow-mos before we go back qualifying.
Andrzej Lewandowski, then driver of the 160 car. And the pit lane reopens then, and we can get the session back underway as we take a look in replay at Henri Acid, our Ferrari Challenge Copper Shell champion. And Alexander Nussbaumer, driver of the 136 car for Go Motorsport and Haupt Racing Team, who currently sits P5 in the session. Von Skeltermar, one of the most photographed cars across the legend of the Ferrari Challenge because of the shark's teeth. And Thomas Gosner, sporting the traditional black and green livery that has served him so well. So, clock is counting down now. We have just 11 minutes of this qualifying session remaining for our Copper Shell drivers here. It's Ferrari Challenge, it's finale Mondiali week and weekend. And we're on board with John Dillon, who's got Andreas Rizzi ahead of him, I believe. Great sound as the 296 accelerates up the hill. We're right on board with John Dillon then. And with the exception of 3, if not 4 cars, all cars out on track. Now, one driver we're probably not going to see out on track is going to be Manuela Gosner, who was on the trajectory to go quickest of everyone, and then just the back end of the car getting away from her, which meant that she was in the gravel, and therefore was the reason for the very, very brief red flag. And that means, of course, that for Manu, a pole position or a front row start in either race 1 or race 2, Nico, has gone for a Burton, as they used to say.
Yeah, well, it's quite the opposite. She will have a lot of Shell cars ahead with the hope of overtaking, but making it to the very sharp end in this very competitive and very balanced grid of cars is a very huge ask, to say the least. But everybody else is vying for positions and vying for 2 very quick laps, because they need it for race 1 and race 2 grids. There is the 136 car of Alexander Nussbaumer.
I want to give a shout out, if I may, to the driver of the 140 car, the Rosso Scudiero driver Yasutaka Shirasaki for Rosso Scuderia, who is out in the Copper Shell this weekend as well. So welcome, Yasutaka, and we wish you well for the qualifying session where you're currently sitting a very creditable P12, so well done to you. Henri Acid is leading from Ernst Kirchmeier, then it's Andrzej Lewandowski, then it is John Dillon. Give the drivers a couple of moments just to get the cars up to speed and the tyres up to temperature, and then we'll see some laps, meaningful laps coming in. And Motohiko Sasaki is already on a charge for Cornes Motors Shiba. Then Sector 1, quicker than anyone. Sector 2, a personal best. So as he climbs up the hill now, does Motohiko Sasaki. We will see what he can deliver. He's currently sitting further down the order than he would like to in terms of his qualifying. It's P10. So is Motohiko Sasaki going to be able to? Well, that won't have helped his quest. A number of drivers taking a shortcut through the exit of that chicane then and finding the grass, which means that this lap time is not going to be counting because shortcutted. Andreas Rizzi for CDP DNC Racing has gone purple Sector 1, purple Sector 2. This could be a very good time from Andreas Rizzi then as he runs down the hill now, searching for the moisture out there to keep the wet weather tyres in their operating window. Braking hard now as Motohiko Sasaki goes quickest of any of the drivers with 7 3/4 minutes remaining. Is that going to be a short-lived moment at the top though, because here comes Andreas Rizzi, who's on a real charge here as James Wyland goes P2. We get a yellow flag, and Andreas Rizzi goes from P9 to P1 with a win 1:55.495.
Yeah, and Andreas Rizzi, who hasn't done the entire campaign, but he has a win and a P2 already to his name, and he really shows his speed in this. It's no longer early part of this quali session because we only have 7 minutes remaining, and now the yellow flag has been rescinded apparently, so clear track. We see Andrzej Lewandowski listed as having stopped on the track. We'll see if that's accurate or if he's been able to recover from the yellow flag, or he's now shown as on an out lap. Anyway, we are still following the last 6 minutes, 40 seconds of this session when we are following Christoph Hörny as he completes this lap, currently way down in P17. What can he do about that? Crossing the timing line and improves up to P13, still got work to do for the rest of the session.
Of which we have 6.5 minutes remaining. So it is Andreas Rizzi from Motohiko Sasaki and Thomas Gosner. Then it's James Wyland, then it's Henri Acid. Nico, this qualifying session has been shaken on its head in comparison to what we, if you and I came into it and said, right, who's going to be top 5 here? I think it's fair to say we wouldn't necessarily not have included the drivers that are in the top 5. Would we have put them in the order they're in at the moment? I don't think so.
Yeah, probably that's very fair. And the likes of John Dillon down in P9, von Skeltema P11, Alexander Nussbaumer P10. I mean, the Copper Shell is so competitive,
yes,
so close that one small error can be the difference between a front row start and P11. We've seen that on a number of occasions, let alone traffic and other factors coming in.
Whoa!
And Pierluigi Alessandri, well, he is now P1.
I didn't see that coming because the two sector times had been personal bests, but not overall bests. Unlike Henri Acid, who's gone purple in Sector 1 and Sector 2, he's going to fall from P6 as he heads to break the timing beam now to P1. And took a huge margin out of Pierluigi Alessandri of very nearly 7/10. So Henri Acid proving his dominance once again, Nico. With 5 minutes remaining, he goes P1. Andreas Rizzi is P3. It's Pierluigi Alessandri P4. Then it is Motohiko Sasaki. Von Skeltema, he goes P5 for Kessel Racing, the very pit perch that we are with right now. Motohiko Sasaki is on a mission though, Nico. Purple through Sector 1 once again. Blue through Sector 2. So Motohiko Sasaki clearly not satisfied with P4. And wants to better it over the 4.5 minutes we have remaining in this qualifying session. Let's see what Motohiko Sasaki can do. Well, I think the likelihood of this lap being a good one might be compromised. Certainly his last lap was compromised because he cut turn 15. That's not this lap. So this lap, Motohiko Sasaki is on the trajectory to improve from his P15 place. P15 because that last lap time was deleted, but this lap time, insofar as we can tell, is perfectly legitimate as he heads towards the line now. Motohiko Isozaki goes to P9.
P9, and he just crossed the timing line early enough that he will have 2 more attempts at that.
Thanks, Nico.
Bearing in mind that you need 2 good laps, that's just the right moment for him potentially. James Weiland up into P3, Tibor Wallet up into P4. There is Ernst Kirchmeier, himself former champion, of course, in the Copper Shell, and didn't do a full campaign here in Europe this year, but he's certainly quick, and he's shown that he's already a race winner again this year.
Yes.
So he's certainly one to reckon with on any track at any moment, especially in inclement weather. He's proven it. I remember Spielberg a few years ago where Sunday was snowed out. He was the man who won on the Saturday. So he's certainly in the running. There is Andrzej Lewandowski again. Was relegated to P8, but he is still pushing several drivers, showing personal bests, overall bests. Pierluigi Alessandro, Thomas Gostner, Henry Hassid, and Kirchmeier with purple sector times. What does the rain do now with 2 minutes and 45 seconds?
Well, in answer to that, it's not going to change anyone's opinion in terms of the rubber they're running, because no one's going to have time to come in and put slicks on. But Andrzej Lewandowski, well, his Sector 1 was a personal best. His Sector 2 was not so good. Henri Hassid, Andreas Rizzi, and now the rain is coming down again. Our Munich-based meteorologist, who's talented in so many ways, has got it right, almost exactly at the right time, because the red flag that we had earlier on, it means that this session now becomes proper wet once again as the precipitation makes itself known, and Ernst Kirchmeier tries to improve, but Sector 2 is just not working for him, Nico. That middle sector, it's Henri Hassid who's 154.688. I mean, there's only 5 100s between Andreas Rizzi and Henri Hassid, but Henri is improving once again. I can see from our timing screen. Ernst Kirchmeier, well, he lost time in Sector 2. Andreas Rizzi has now gone quickest, and he's taken that pole position away from Henri Hassid, Nico, with a 154. Now Henri Hassid responds with a 153.998.
And Motohiko Isozaki is stretching his legs, so whatever the rain does, the drivers are unfazed, and the track apparently still offers enough traction. 1 minute and 15 seconds remaining. Ernst Kirchmeier, super slow on the Variante Alta through the chicane, and you mentioned it, he didn't have all the sectors tidy all the time. This looked tidy, however.
Yes.
Attack the curbs was just the right amount of venom, if you will. And, you know, this is now a chase. Henri Hassid, purple sector. Andreas Rizzi, purple sector, even quicker. Ernst Kirchmeier on par. And Motohiko Isozaki lost time on the second sector, but he's still trying for an improvement. Currently P6, but that traffic, that is Corinna Gostner, I believe, ahead of him. That may have compromised this lap. And, well, he's still got enough time to do 1 more lap after this one. This is really looking like it's gonna go all the way down to the wire.
I think you're right. I think it's not over until the checkered flag comes out. And of course, even when the checkered flag comes out, any driver that's on a hot lap, that's going to be able to count. So Motohiko Isozaki, we feel that his final sector was compromised, but let's see, he certainly is going to be able to go again, because he crosses the timing line with 4 seconds remaining. So it's this lap or no lap for Motohiko Isozaki, who has looked really, really good in this qualifying session. And his P7 belies actually what he has delivered. He has had 1 or 2 laps deleted, though, through short-cutting, mostly turn 15. So we'll see that if he can keep it between the white lines on this lap that he is on right now. For the moment, he is Henri Hassid, P1. Andrzej Lewandowski, though, P2. And James Weiland finds the gravel, but being of tidy stuff, he finds the escape road, gets the car back out on track again, preventing a suspension of this session. Well done, James Weiland. A number of drivers, if I may say so, Nico, are out of position for qualifying. Von Skelterman, John Dillon, James Weiland, those are all drivers that we would expect to see further up the order.
Yeah, absolutely. Alexander Nussbaum, who was pretty much nowhere through the entirety of the session, has just come up to P3. And Lewandowski, he is still pushing, just made it up into 100th of the Henry Hassid time. This is likely not going to be an improvement with 2.5 tenths down, but it might be the decisive lap for race 2, because remember, we still need 2 good lap times. The checkered flag is out. Andrei Lewandowski is the last driver who can really do something about the final standings and the grid order at the very sharp end of the races. Andrei Lewandowski, final turn, heads towards the timing line. He won't duck into the pit lane, and he will try to set possibly his second best lap time. A 1:54.008 his best, a 1:54.440 his second best. So that is in the books, and we will see what it's good for.
And here we can see that was James Wyland from earlier on when we saw him manage to get the car back out, pointing in the right direction again. So John Dillon then, who's slowing right down now. He's one of the drivers, Nico, that he's just nowhere where I expected him to be, much further down the order. It's P11. Christoph Herney, another driver, perhaps P9. Did we expect more from Christoph Herney? It's what's fascinating about the Ferrari Challenge, because this Copa category in particular has been so competitive all season long, that, you know, you can look at a bunch of drivers and think, yeah, Tibor Valin is another one that maybe we would expect to be further up the order. So it's going to make for some fascinating racing, that's for sure.
Yeah, and Motohiko Izazaki, he's only down in P14. We had 3 lap times deleted due to track limits, and 2 of those were Motohiko Izuzaki's. He would have been very, very high up the order if not for those violations of track limits. But he will have to start from row 7 on the grid later on. Henry Hassid, he won't. He will have no other car in front of him. He will line up on pole position for race 1. We're not quite sure where he will be for race 2, but we will find out. And it's going to be only the Friday race for which this information really, really matters. The championship has been sealed, and this is the final standing of this quali session.
Omri Hassid, P1, Andrei Lewandowski, P2, Alexander Nussbaumer, P3. Then it was Andreas Rizzi, Ernst Kirkmeyer, Thomas Gosner, James Wyland, Pierluigi Alessandri, who was at the top of the chart at one point during that qualifying session. He occupies P8. To the second page of our qualifying results then sees Christoph Herney P9, Tibor Valin out of position P10. That's also the case for John Dillon P11, and for von Skeldermar P12, Mikael Martin P13. Motohiko Izazaki promised much. It was only ever P14 though, ahead of Corinna Gosner. Yasutaka Shirasaki, then Manuela Gosner, another driver out of position. Ken Abe, and then Tor Augen and Willem van der Vorm, both not posting a lap time from that qualifying session. Thanks for watching Copa Shell. Stand by, Copa Shell Am on the way. welcome to Imola. Welcome to the Finale Mondiale, and welcome to Copa Am qualifying. Weather conditions, track temperature 19 degrees. Air temperature is the same, and we've got about 14 kilometers per hour of wind. That's the way it looks. Very much damp conditions as we look at Jan Sandman in the 186 car. The Kessel Racing driver making his way down the pit lane right now. So 30-minute qualifying session, fastest lap time sets the grid for race 1. Now the second fastest lap time sets the grid for race 2. It is of course only Wednesday, but as this is the Finale Mondiale event, there is so much going on. And that's why we start qualifying on the Wednesday and races on Thursday, Friday, then Super Bowl qualifying for the World Finals on Saturday, and then the World Finals to come as well. So much going on the Finale Mondiale as we look at the 171 car of Andrea Levi, the Rosso Corsa racer, and all the cars there standing by. Rain has started falling once again. Definitely a wet weather session, that's for sure. And some 19 cars out there for qualifying as they are released right now. Green flag is out. Of course, the Copa Am Championship in Europe has already been won, and won in fine style by newcomer to the Ferrari Challenge for 2024, Zeus Grimpias, who has done a magnificent job and became champion at the last round. So he comes here having sealed the championship, but of course wants to win every race that he competes in, as we see Hassan Debussy making his way out of the pit lane and lots of other cars making their way right now. This is Zeus Grimpias, then the first to show what a debut year he has had. And when you consider that Zeus Grimpias came into motor racing in the Ferrari Challenge with zero racing experience, what a season he has had. It's been magnificent, and my goodness me, the TV boss is behind me, Andrea Montali. What are you doing here? You should be in the OB truck, friend. So there is Zeus Grimpias, who I was just extolling the virtues of. You know, when he came into this, absolute rookie into motor racing. What a job he has done. What an impressive season he's had in 2024. And in my opinion, Nico Spalek, who is alongside me, Zeus has been very fortunate in the mistakes he has made in a steep learning curve have come during practices. You know, so he's perfected his art for the races.
That's true, yeah, no, and I mean, it's beyond remarkable what he has done and what he has managed to do throughout the season. And in some cases, it was in his defeats where he was the most mature, when he didn't have it all his own way, when he was overtaken. He didn't try and overpush, he didn't try and overdrive the car or his ability. He was happy with P2, which is wrong to say. He wasn't happy, but he was content with accepting the point, which, you know, as a rookie, it's remarkable enough to have the driving standards and quality and consistency that he showed, but then to accept that, you know, even in success, maybe it's not P1 today. That is a true mark of character and maturity.
I have to say, the Copa Am driver base have been so, I mean, some of the battles between Zeus Grimpias and Andreas Koenig, for example, you know, the healthy respect that each of the drivers has for each other has been really supreme, first class. And Zeus Grimpias has made the best of it all. So we've got 27.5 minutes, as near as makes no difference, of this qualifying session remaining in damp conditions. Is it me or is it moist? Well, it is definitely moist out there on the tarmac, that's for sure. And Zeus Grimpias is now... He's done purple through sector one as we descend into frivolity again. The reason for the laughter is because Nico nearly fell off his chair. Which is basically because he was sitting on his wallet, which of course elevates him several feet up into this commentary studio, such as his vast wealth. Is that the same as that vast vest? Right, so it's Grimpias. Sector 2 is purple as well. That's it, over to you, bye.
Well, Dave broke me and that broke Dave in return. Well, so we go back to Zeus Grimpias as we see a yellow flag here in the first part of the lap, and now it's a red flag, and that means the session is suspended. We don't quite know yet who.
Because of a pitiful commentary.
Probably not, but that with only.
Oh,
and
it's
that's
Jan Sandman.
Jan Sandman, also a race winner, and welcome addition to the Ferrari Challenge Europe from the Winter Challenge. Not a welcome addition to the gravel bed, that's for sure. And yeah, even before he made it into the turn, he went off the track, certainly, and fortunately no impact with the barrier, so that will mean it's going to be a quick one, unless the tractor...
I thought the tractor was going to back into him.
Well, fortunately not. Good for the 296 Challenge engineered Kessel Racing. Yeah, Jan Sandman off the track, and that obviously is very unfortunate for his hopes of making any more inways into or inroads into the championship standings from his current position.
He has been another fascinating debutant, if I may say, into the Ferrari Challenge. We met him for the first time in a competitive sense at the Winter Challenge, which this year was at the Yas Marina circuit in Abu Dhabi, where he impressed both of us. I think he impressed himself, so much so that he committed to a full season campaign, being coached by Charlie Hollings, who's a darn good driver and good driver coach as well. And Jan has had success, and the race win that he took was richly deserved, and I feel very sorry for him that he's found the gravel on this occasion. But what we should make mention of, Nico, is that the weather conditions and the track conditions out there are really, really tough for these drivers.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And the thing is, it's going to be that way for the remainder of the week, which doesn't help, but equally it's important to get used to it. We're being told that the session will resume, and you have it on the screen, in just a little bit more than 1 minute from now, as tire pressures are adjusted on the Josef Schumacher car. Very colourful car, as is your mood in commentary this afternoon, Dave.
As indeed is Josef's character traits, if I may say. Yeah, Josef Schumacher then, and you could see actually as we looked at the front end of his car, the rain was really, really coming down as we look at the Louis Peruschio car. Spent some time in an airport lounge with Louis in San Francisco. Was it? No, somewhere else. Anyway, in the States, and Louis and I having a really, really good chat. And he's yeah, a really, really talented driver, and it's nice to see him committing to the whole campaign that he's done so this year. And that's what's fascinating about the Ferrari Challenge, Nico. If I can make mention of that just for a moment. You know, we race in here in Europe, we race in North America, we race in Japan, we race in the UK, and from next year also going to be racing in Australia as well. And there is a healthy interchange of drivers who can elect to come and race in perhaps Europe or race in North America or whatever. And a number of North American drivers this year, including Louis and also Ray Acosta and Lisa Clark and others as well, have chosen to come and race with the European contingent. And yeah, really, really adds some real colour spectacle to our Ferrari Challenge racing here in Europe, as if it were not exciting enough. As we go back to greens and we get back out on track with Zoe Skrimpias leading the cars away right now.
Absolutely, and it's not only here at the World Finals that we have drivers from all over the world competing on the same track. It's Motohiko Izuzaki, who was the champion here in Copper Shell Am just last year, and who we just saw in the Copper Shell qualifying. He obviously also competing in Japan, and that doesn't stop him from being a full season campaigner in Europe, obviously, and we're very glad for that. Just underscores the radiance and the appeal of the brand everywhere in the world.
I agree. So then, as the cars make their way, the session has got 25 minutes remaining, so the very brief interlude, if you will, as the recovery of the Jan Sandman car took place, won't have impacted too much, I would suggest, on the duration of this session. But, of course, they've got to go through their warm-up routine all over again, in terms of bringing the tyres up to temperature. And of course the temperature drive in the tyres is altogether different when you're on wet weather tyres, and So they've got to do that all over again. We can see Stephen Earle, and I think that's Paolo Scudieri. And Paolo driving the 296 car. The introduction of the 296, of course, into the Ferrari Challenge this year, certainly across North America and also in Europe. And the car universally revered by all the drivers. A very different car to the 488, which was so successful, not only as a challenge car, but as a full sequence GT car as well. But this car has been very different, and drivers have had to adapt to some of the idiosyncrasies, if you will, of this car. One of the leading features is the brake-by-wire, Nico, which I'm told by a couple of drivers, takes some getting used to. But one man that's got used to it very well indeed, and perhaps because he hadn't found familiarity with the 488, is Zoe Skrimpias, of course, because it was his first racing this year. And he is getting about this qualifying session the way he knows best, and that is by setting purple sectors. At the moment, Stephen Earle was the driver that we saw a few moments ago with Paolo Scudieri. He was looking good as well, but Zoe Skrimpias is by far and away the quickest. I don't think we'd really had a meaningful lap time from anybody before the session was suspended. And that's suspended for Jan Sandman, who found the gravel. And in fairness to Jan, he'd have been out there on cold tyres and even wet weather tyres if they're cold. They don't offer you the same level of grip as they do when they're up to temperature.
No, 100% correct. And yeah, we're still chasing and waiting for the first relevant sector times and relevant times overall, with 23 minutes remaining. Zoe Skrimpias likely is going to be the first one. He was the first out of the pit lane at the resumption of the session, so we expect him to set a relevant lap time in about a few seconds. Andreas Koenig, who we just saw ahead of him, he's still on an outlap with that white, green and red car, just escaping center stage left and here in the forefront. But here is Zoe Skrimpias, who is rounding Rivazza 1, and then it's going to be Rivazza 2, and then it's a full blast off the throttle through the small kink and towards the timing line, and we will get a first relatively meaningful time on our screen, and it's going to be roughly in the direction of 2 minutes, a 1:58.335 for the time being, and Roland Herper is following suit almost 2.5 tenths slower on that occasion. There is Zoe Skrimpias really attacking, and even a little bit on the inside of the curbs, of the sausage curbs, is Zoe Skrimpias. Controls it nicely there with the Rosso Corsa team and pit purge. And there is Henrik Kamstrup for Formula Racing, also with some very good looking sector times.
I agree. Henrik Kamstrup, who's had some success this season. I was going to mention Roland Hurtner, who's currently P2. Roland Hurtner has had a good season as well. I think his best finish coming in the last race at Nürburgring, if memory serves me correctly. Let me look at my laptop here and see what he did last time around. I think Roland Hurtner certainly got a podium. Yes, a P2. So Henrik Kamstrup then, he's looking good at the moment with Sector 1 purple, Sector 2 purple, and Paolo Scudieri's looking good as well. With 21 minutes remaining, it's Zoe Skrimpias P1 at the moment. Is Henrik Kamstrup going to say something about that as he crosses the timing line? Right now, he goes P1, Nico. And he goes P1, having taken a full second out of the Zoe Skrimpias time. Now, in fairness, that was Zoe's first real-timed lap. But to take nothing away from Henrik Kamstrup, who has gone P1. And Paolo Scudieri is looking a bit racy as well in this quali session, Nico.
Yeah, absolutely. And Henrik Kamstrup, just to finish that, got most of that advantage on the final sector. And does that mean that after the intermission, where a little bit more standing water was accumulating through the rain, now that has been dissipated again by the cars running? It's a theory, we don't quite know. Paolo Scudieri will try and do the level best on that final sector as well. Very good through 2 sectors. Can he do something about the Henrik Kamstrup time of 1:57.379? He's going to be in the vicinity of that. It's not quite there, half a second down, but it's still P2 for the time being.
Good showing from Henrik Kamstrup, good showing from Paolo Scudieri. Paolo Scudieri, who will be coached by Stefano Guy, as here comes Henrik Kamstrup, who on this lap he's not going to trouble his previous best time, Nico. of a 157.379, because Sector 1 and Sector 2 are coloured purple, coloured dark grey, so not the purple sectors that he needs to be seeing for improvements. Eric Chung is 4th fastest. Roland Hurtler is now being relegated to P5. Guy Favet with a very creditable P6. Talal Sher looking good, as well as his Stephen Earl and Narkatsu Shibata. We're delighted to welcome into the Shell Am qualifying session and the racing across the course of the weekend as well. So here comes Henrik Kamstrup. This time he's not going to be one that I think is going to usurp his previous best time of 157.379.
Indeed it doesn't. Still a good lap time, and remember, we've said it a number of times, but it bears reminding, every driver needs 2 good lap times for race 1 and race 2
Good
grid.
point.
So not a wasted lap. Eric Chung with a very good first sector, a decent second sector, so he is in the running of making a run for that front row provisional start. And right on cue we go to him, Eric Chung, a race winner already, and having managed an incredible feat of winning a race in spite of having a drive-through penalty.
Oh, extraordinary.
Which was absolutely extraordinary, and that was against very, very stiff competition, as you can tell from the way this season has unfolded. Remarkable achievement from Eric Chung, and he is certainly one with his experience who, in this changing and tricky weather condition, you expect him to do well. And he is completing this lap, currently running in P5, but he's going to aim for an improvement. And is that 157.379 in play? Almost, but he vaults up all the way to P2.
Yeah, good lap from Eric Chung, then goes second fastest. Henrik Kamstrup still remains the driver that's quickest. Only 3 drivers in the 57s, and they are Henrik Kamstrup, Eric Chung, and Paolo Scudieri. Zoe Skrimpias, the early leader in our qualifying session, down there now in P5 as Talal Shayer wrestles away the curbs for Scuderia 11, and personal bests across Sector 1 and Sector 2 for Talal Shayer, who's currently 7th fastest. So this could be an improvement for Talal Shayer. Is it going to trouble the front runners? Probably not, but it's certainly going to put him up there and heading in the right direction. Talal Shayer. Oh, just a little wobble as he exits the Arabiata 2 and heads towards the breaking the timing beam now. So from P7, Talal Shayer goes to P6. So it's an improvement of 1 place. But Paolo Scudieri, Nico, is on a mission, having gone purple in Sector 1 and Sector 2. Dissatisfied with his current P3 place.
Yeah, at almost 9/10 to the good after 2 sectors. So where just a few seconds ago I thought, like, oh, there's a little bit of a lull in this session, not a lot of improvement, that has dramatically changed. And Paolo Scudieri leading the charge as he goes into Arabata 1. Rivazza 1, sorry, wrong circuit. Rivazza 2.
I did that as well, apologies. That's it.
And Paolo Scudieri from P3 all the way up into P1. Paolo Scudieri lost a little bit of time in the final sector, but certainly made this one count. 156.783, the first one into the 56s. So that's certainly something. Paolo Scudieri, that super slow-mo. Always great to see the cars go through the Variante Alta. And yeah, actually, that's what it's called.
Well done, you.
Henrik Kamstrup at the very same spot. He is 5/10 off the pace. Not necessarily going to be an improvement on this lap, but certainly Paolo Scudieri showed that the track offers the opportunity for an improvement with half quali distance just approaching.
Do you know what I think part of it is? I think because the rain is really quite intense drizzle now, that the conditions are perfect for the wet weather tyres. They are coming into their own, and the drivers are able to project the car exactly where they want to and know that the Pirelli wet weather tyres are going to do exactly what they're designed to do. So Paolo Scudieri then with a fine lap. And Eric Chung also on something of an improvement trajectory. And here comes Eric Chung right now for Formula Racing. Sector 1, a purple sector. He is currently P4. Talal Shayer is P3. Then it's Henrik Hamstrup and Paolo Scudieri, who are P2 and P1, respectively. So just on 14.5 minutes remaining in this qualifying session. Here comes Andreas Koenig, bouncing his way over the curbs. Andreas Koenig at the moment is way out of position. Down there in P17, so expect to see more from Andreas Koenig. Stephen Earle brakes now, turns in, all looking pretty tidy for Stephen Earle, the Kessel Racing driver, who's currently P9. Accelerates the 296 challenge car now as Roland Hurtner goes quickest with a 1:56.688. Well done, Roland Hurtner. And Stephen Earle crosses the timing line, stays P9, but Roland Hurtner has wrestled away that P1 position from Paolo Scudieri. Roland, who I was saying has improved during the course of this year, and the Zeus Scrimpias car, a new set of wet weather tyres going onto the Zeus Scrimpias car right now. There you can see them hard at work in the pit lane with 13.5 minutes remaining. It's Hurtner from Scudieri, from Kamstrup, from Shayer, from Chung, the top 5 in this qualifying session. This is our current provisional pole sitter, Roland Hurtner. Took a P2 in the second race at the Nürburgring, and now finding these conditions to his liking here at Imola.
Absolutely, but it is a provisional pole, and this lap is not an improvement. Others are still pushing. Eric Chung is one of them. Paolo Scudieri is another, and lots of improvement across the board. Andrea Levi, who we haven't really talked about in this session, he said that he feels really good on this track, and we expect him to figure in the progression over this week. And let's see, Roland Hurtner, he's not on the quick one. Eric Chung, you can see his second sector wasn't quite up to speed, but there is still sector 3 to do, and maybe he can do something about it. Roland Hurtner really has slowed down now as Paolo Scudieri moves past him, and maybe that was Roland Hurtner just buying track space and allowing Paolo Scudieri by with a view to then go set and reset. There is the Andreas Koenig car and Eric Chung alongside. Will that compromise the lap from Eric Chung? We don't quite know, but we will find out. He certainly dives deep into the Rivazza 1. That may have been just a little bit too deep, far away from the apex. But does it set him up for a good trajectory out of the turn? Certainly no problems on the exit there. And with 11 minutes and 50 seconds remaining, Eric Chung heads towards the timing line. I don't think he will trouble the top times necessarily, but it is an improvement indeed. A 1:57.296 moves up into P4, and Andrea Levi, we talked about him, he inherits P6 for the moment as Paolo Scudieri. As you can see, purple first sector, very quick through that first sequence of turns, and now climbing up all the way towards the top parts of the track, climbing up, and then it dips back down to the left-hand side. Double apex into Acqua Minerale. And from there it goes right back up the roller coaster. No wonder people sometimes compare Imola a little bit to the Nürburgring, that undulating nature. It's a little bit shorter than the Nordschleife, admittedly, but it does offer quite a little bit of elevation change.
Fair point, well made. Eric Chung then, currently 4th fastest. Remind you, as Nico reminded us earlier on, that it's not only the fastest lap that you're interested in this qualifying session, but it's also nailing the second fastest lap, because it's the quickest lap and the second quickest lap that are going to determine the grid position for race 1 and race 2 to finish off the 2024 Ferrari Challenge Europe campaign, which has been such a huge success this year. As Eric Chung pulls into the pit lane, is that Paolo Scudieri? I beg your pardon, it's Paolo Scudieri, who's second fastest at the moment. Here is Eric Chung continuing his quest to get up the order. Is sector 2, the middle sector, Nico, not quite so good. So we'll see what he's able to do now as he arguably heads for home and heads towards the timing line. Is this going to be an improvement? I'm not sure. I don't think it is from Eric Chung. As he crosses the timing line. Well, to be fair, What do I know? He's gone 2.5 tenths quicker than anybody else. So that just proves that not every sector has got to be purple, Nico.
Yeah, no, but I do agree that that came a little bit out of left field and didn't quite see that coming, as Henrik Kamstrup, who had a very, very good first sector, didn't get a second time for the second sector, but he's certainly in the final one, and he is certainly running, so it's going to be interesting. Roland Hurtner was just unseated from provisional P1. He is trying to fight back. We're into single digits in terms of minutes remaining. Henrik Kamstrup P4, trying to improve, trying to make one of those 2 laps that will count at the end of the session. And you can see on the camera lens that the rain certainly has intensified a little bit since the beginning of the session. Henrik Kamstrup, yeah, no, there was nothing in the second sector, but other drivers, including Roland Hurtner, are improving.
Yes, and Roland has set a personal best through Sector 1. Sector 2 was purple, so this could be very good from Roland Hurtner. Let's see how he does as he concludes the lap, runs downhill now. Couple of turns to do before he can give it 100% on the loud pedal and head towards the timing line. His target time is 1:56.444, which was set by Eric Chung. Is this going to trouble it? The Go Motorsport Engstler driver, Roland Hurtner, then heading towards the timing beam right now and crosses it, and he lost significant time in Sector 3, Nico.
Yeah, we didn't quite see it, but that was a 1.5 seconds and more, actually, that he lost on the final turn. Another name we haven't called out is Guy Favre, or Guy 4, and lo and behold, there he is, and with good reason, because he is very quick through 2 sectors. So let's see what he can do on the final one. You can see the spray from the back of the car, much more significant than it was just a few minutes ago, as it's getting dark slowly outside, not helped by the clouds overhead. So Guy Favre, he has clear vision, and you can see the light beaming through the rain and the mist and the spray. And it's a 1:56.444, and Guy Favre makes the clock stop. Not quite there, but it is an improvement on this occasion. Improves up to P6. Eric Chung, Roland Hurtner, Paolo Scudieri, and he is in P4, Henrik Kamstrup.
Yes, the Formula Racing driver who's Sector 1 promised much and delivered little. Sector 2 got it back up to speed once again, and we know that you don't have to have every sector purple, as Henrik Kamstrup does not improve from his P4 position. So it remains Eric Chung, Roland Hurtner, Paolo Scudieri, Henrik Kamstrup. They are the top 4.
Indeed, although Henrik Kamstrup a little bit of an improvement in terms of time, and again it goes back to having 2 good lap times. So that lap still was significant for him, not quite as quick as he would like. Eric Chung, he does everything right apparently on this lap, more than half a second quicker, and remember, he's already P1, so if he can make it stick, if he can keep it up through the final sector, that would put him absolutely into the, excuse the pun, driver's seat for both pole positions for tomorrow and Friday. No mistake through the chicane, nothing that we could see at least. And through the spray and the mist, downhill towards Rivazza 1 comes one Mr. Eric Chung. A little bit away from the apex once again. We saw that early with him. It didn't necessarily compromise his lap time that much. Certainly keeps it all under control, and goes maybe for a little bit of a safer line through there. We will see what it does in terms of lap time. Certainly it still looks good. A 1:56.444, his own best time, and
wow,
he keeps up his margin just before yellow flag through turn 6 is announced, and that means,
oh, that is the 134 car of Mutlu Tarzev, which means a red flag, Nico, with just 5.5 minutes of the session remaining. So it was the Mutlu Tarzev car, I'm sure it was, that I saw up against the barriers, which basically means this session is suspended, and with 5.5 minutes remaining, there will be some perhaps doubts as to whether the session will get going again.
I think it's going to be. I think they will restart it with just under 2 minutes of a lap time at quali pace. That means you can get out and do at least. Well, you can do one more after that, realistically.
There is Mutlu. He's perfectly okay, which is the best thing. Of course, the integral safety of the 296 Challenge car is unquestioned, but sad to see that Mutlu Tazev, who'd done a very creditable job in qualifying, I think was P8 or P9? P9, with the 134 car, engineered, of course, by Emil Frey Racing.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the drivers who was caught out because he was on a quick one is Zoe Scrimpias, our regular pole setter and race winner. He's by his own standards, and with all due respect, only in P5, and that certainly means he was just setting up to do very, very quick lap times. But you know, it's always something that you can't control.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're lucky, sometimes you're unlucky. Eric Chung was lucky because he finished the lap that he was on with just a few seconds before the red flag came out. So Scrimpias, who comes into shot there, on the losing end of that, and obviously Mutlu Tazev, unfortunate for him, has to watch the rest of this qualifying session. We have no indication on when the session will restart, but by virtue of the fact that we didn't have an indication that it wouldn't restart, I think now it's fair to assume that we will get this session back underway at some point.
Yeah, you are probably right. Eric Chung, Roland Hurtner, Paolo Scudieri, the top three. And there you can see the cars back into the pit lane. The clock was stopped with 5 minutes and 40 seconds remaining as Eric Chung makes his way down the pit lane. He, of course, is our current P1 driver, having set a time of 1:55.848. By my reckoning, the only driver in the 55. So it's a big margin between himself and Roland Hurtner of very nearly 8.5 tenths. You could just see Franz Engstler on the pit wall there. Of course, his driver, Roland Hurtner, currently second fastest. Franz Engstler himself a driver, and Franz regrettably not having the season that he would have liked to have had, but we're delighted to see him in the paddock and that he's here. And actually, if any driver is going to give you advice, if you take advice from one Mr. Franz Engstler, it's not bad advice to be given, because he knows how to pedal a car.
Oh, yes, for sure. The Engstler family, of course, very, very proficient and experienced in racing.
Good to see this driver in the Ferrari Challenge this weekend, Nurikatsu Shibata, making his debut in the Ferrari Challenge in Europe this weekend, and yeah, doing a very creditable job in qualifying as well, qualifying just outside the top 10 at the moment in P11. This man has been called out, and he can ill afford, Nico, if I may say, when the session does resume, assuming it does. He can ill afford to be called out. He's got to put in a better lap time than the one he has so far, which is giving him P5.
Yeah, absolutely. Mutlu Tazev, we saw in the barriers, which brought out the suspension. This is Tal Shahir with a 124 car. The 120 car is being pedaled by Guy Favey. He currently in P7. Largely invisible to us for the most part of the session, but doing a very, very creditable job. And, well, only one man has bettered Roland Hurtner. That was Eric Chung, but Roland Hurtner really, really coming on strong in the second half of this season. And, you know, it's just the right time when it's the World Final race on the horizon to be at your ultimate best.
You're not wrong. Zoe Scrimpias then. Well, he rattled his 296 Challenge car across the curbs in his quest to improve from his current P5 position in qualifying. Paolo Scudieri, driver of the 101 car, you will recall from earlier on in the session, was at the top of the charts. And Paolo having done a good job in qualifying. We're taking a look at some super slow-mos of the 296s bouncing their way around the track, including that car of Henrik Kamstrup. There it is. I love the metallic blue livery that Henrik Kamstrup adorns his 296 Challenge car. Zoe Scrimpias then, who, as I mentioned earlier on at the start of our program, was new into motor racing at the beginning of this year, and such was his success rate early on. Many of us, and I say us because I was top of that chart, were somewhat unbelieving of the alluding to him never having done any racing before, but it's absolutely true. And that is some testament to the Ferrari Challenge program and how good it is that drivers like Zoe Skrimpies can come and make the impression that they have made this year, Nico.
Indeed, and it's also a testament to how far he has come that we consider a P5 provisionally for him a sort of letdown, because he's just set the bar so high for himself and everybody else. We still don't have a time confirmed for when the session will be back underway, so we bide our time and watch some great Ferrari Challenge 296 cars going slicing through the rain, through the chicane here at Imola for the first day of timed race and qualifying action, with the races coming from tomorrow morning. The first race already at a few minutes after 9 o'clock, and then being spread out 4 races across Europe and North America across the entirety of the day. And we do the same thing with a little bit of a different sequencing of the races on Friday. And then Saturday, it's quali time again, because we have our categories qualify for the World Final races on Sunday. And in the afternoon, there is a 6-car per category Super Pole session, which will determine the first 3 roads for each of the races, because that race will be determining those World Final titles, as we now get confirmation at 4:57 p.m. local time, which is 1 minute and 45 seconds from now. We will get this quali session underway, and eager anticipation in the pit lane.
Yes, and it's going to become a very busy track for the remaining 5.5 minutes of the session. As we look at the back end of the Andrea Levy car, the Rosso Corsa racer, who amazingly, his best finish this year has been a P2. I could have sworn that he'd had a win, but he hasn't, and he would dearly love to do that here at Imola, of course, at the World Final weekend. It's such a prolific event, that's for sure. There's the Louis Peruschia car, the Rosso Corsa racer, and yes, session is just exactly 60 seconds away from getting back underway. It will be a short, sharp dash for cash for the drivers then, because there will only be 5.5 minutes remaining of this qualifying session for the Ferrari Challenge Copa Am drivers. We're not done with the action today yet. Still more to come. We like to cram the days full of action and activity for you. That is our quest, that is our desire, that is our aim, and we do that because, of course, we have got our North American Challenge qualifying to get underway also. And that will be following this Copa Am session from the Ferrari Challenge. So right now we are but 10 seconds away from that red light at the end of the pit lane, changing from that color to green in 2, 1, 0. Well, they're not quite as timely with the lights as we are, but yes, might be 6 seconds late if I'm going to be really pedantic over it, but we do go green. And let's get the session back underway again then. 5.5 minutes remaining for our Ferrari Challenge Copa Am cars for their qualifying. Is anyone going to be able to unseat Eric Chung? I think for Eric Chung, the suspension of the session came at a time which potentially, Nico, could be advantageous to him. Is anyone going to be able to find a lap to take it to Eric Chung before the end of the session? 2 laps is the best you're going to get, probably. Going to be a lot of traffic around. Don't know. Think he might be all right here.
Yeah, that's it's a tough ask in these conditions to get out and set yourself up, because you're really, after the installation lap, you only get 1 more lap, realistically. Maybe 2 if you're really, really quick, but traffic is going to be all around you, so that's going to be a tough ask. But, you know, it's not only the best lap that counts, especially if you don't have a good second lap. That's going to be the one that you still aspire to improve on. So whatever you can do in this session, you will try, and then you have to rely on none of the other cars, none of the other drivers making a mistake and beaching the car in the gravel, because that would be game over, because then there would be certainly no more restart, because it just wouldn't make sense.
I agree. Okay, so already we're down to the final 4 minutes of this Copichel Am qualifying session. We're live from Imola. It is the finale Mondiale weekend. And the Copichel Am qualifying currently being led by Eric Chung ahead of Roland Hurtner, Paolo Scudieri and Henrik Kamstrup, the car which is center picture right now. The all-blue 113 car gets very sideways on the exit of that turn as the, I'm afraid to say, the weather and the rain has intensified, and now you can see the spray is such that visibility, if you're following a car, is really, really compromised now. So conditions for our drivers out there, far from nice. And yes, Eric Chung, Roland Hurtner, Paolo Scudieri, Henrik Kamstrup, the top 4. I'm not convinced that we're going to see anyone better Eric Chung's lap time come the checkered flag coming out on that session. So it's dank, it's gloomy, it's pretty miserable out there. The only thing that's really heightening it is the fact that in these conditions, to watch 296 challenge cars getting around the track, well, that's still terribly, terribly exciting. Paolo Scudieri then, 3rd fastest in the session so far. And the session, I remind you, with 2 3/4 minutes remaining. But you could see there through sector 1, he was 2.5 seconds down. And this is going to be a big, big ask, a tall order to unsettle, I think, the current order of our drivers, which is Chung, Hurtner, Scudieri, Kamstrup, Skrimpias, Shire, Vey, Levy, then it's Tarzev and Alvaro Ramos, who is P10. Good qualifying from Alvaro.
Absolutely. Thus far, no personal best, or just the first personal best showing up on our timing screen. So that just indicates that at least thus far, nobody is scratching the surface of an improvement yet. But let's see. The drivers are still pushing. They are still going. And, you know, with some of the moisture being dissipated by the 16 or so cars on the track, that might mean on the next lap that someone might get into the realm of improving on their previous best time. I wouldn't bank on it, to be honest, but it's great to see all the drivers still pushing and still trying to their level best, even in adverse conditions like these. As you say, you could do a lot worse than looking at 296 challenge cars battling out for top starting positions for the races over the next 2 days. And I think there is also some poetic beauty in the camera work in the rain and the lights at this late hour of the day. But that's my personal taste. Let's go with Paolo Scudieri, who just completed this lap, 5.5 seconds down on the best time. Eric Chung, for sure, is in the pits, and he's completed his work for today.
Yes, he's not going out again. He's out of the car. And we've got just under a minute remaining in this qualifying session. Can't see any purple times on the screen as we watch Norikatsu Shibata then for Cornus Osaka in the 127 car in Copichel Am. Great to see him racing in the Ferrari Challenge here in Europe. So Eric Chung, Roland Hurtner, Paolo Scudieri, Henrik Kamstrup remain the top 4 with 30 seconds remaining in the qualifying session. And we have a number of drivers that have chosen to go into the pit lane, and they ain't coming out again. That's Eric Chung, Guy Favre, Andrea Levy, Stephen Earle, Josef Schumacher and Andreas Koenig. If ever a driver was out of position from qualifying, Nico, it's Andreas Koenig.
Yeah, he's way down the order, P16. I mean, he and Jan Sandman, they will have work to do for both of the races. But good job from those who are at the sharp end. As we expected, not really any improvement on our timing screen, so I would expect quite a lot of the drivers not even finishing that lap, but just dive into pit lane. As we said, the one thing that we can't quite understand from the timing screen is what are the second best lap times, and some of the drivers who may have just had one decent or reasonable lap, they might just use this to just improve as much as possible on their second best lap time. We will obviously get all the results after the session, but as Shibata for Konis Osaka completes his qualifying session 4 seconds down from the previous best. That is a personal best, in fairness, so it paid off for him. It certainly paid off for Eric Chung, who's there with Corinna in the pit lane, and yeah, I think he can be happy with the outcome of this session, because he certainly will have pole position for both of the races, because his second best lap time was better than the best lap time from Roland Hurtner. So he really locked out the 2 best lap times overall in this session. As for all intents and purposes, this session is over.
Yeah, so well done to Eric Chung, his partner Corinne, you can see there, and he applauds himself. Well, why not?
And the team, of course.
And the team, of course. Formula Racing then having done a good job, and Eric Chung finds himself P1 probably for both of the races, as Nico indicated. Let's get the results in full for you then as the rain continues to team down here at the Imola circuit. We'll bring those graphics to you with confirmation of the results in just a moment from now. The lights red. We still have another session to come. That is for our all categories in the Ferrari Challenge North America, which I've had the privilege of calling across the course of the season, and very much looking forward to their final 2 races of their championship for 2024, as Roland Hurtner and Talal Shire making their way into the Parc Ferme area of the paddock here at Imola. So Eric Chung, P1. Here they are then. Eric Chung, P1, Roland Hurtner, P2, Paolo Scudieri, P3. Then it was Henrik Hamstrup, Zoe Scrimpias, Talal Shire, Guy Favre and Andrea Levy complete the top 8 of our Copa Am qualifying. To the second page we go right now, where we find Mutlu Tarzev, who of course ended up against the barriers. Alvaro Ramos, P10. Then it's Norikatsu Shibata ahead of Shintaro Akatsu, Stephen Earl, Josef Schumacher and Hassan Debussy. And they were ahead of Andreas Koenig, Louis Peruskia and Jan Salmon, who was unable to set a time in that qualifying session. That completes our Copa Am qualifying, and I remind you, we're not done with the action. We have North America to come in just a few moments. Bye-bye for now.